Hey everyone, Kyle from Hilton here, and yes, I am back doing a beer tasting. Broadly can't smell or taste very much right now, but that's alright. Aaron's intern, Sky, is going to be my tasting eye dog, which doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, he's not using his eyes and he's not really a dog, but you know, he's gonna taste for me and help out with the tasting portion while we do the greatest IPAs in the world. Now, that probably sounds like hyperbole, but you notice the shirt I'm wearing. This is when I went to Planning the Younger Day 2013, and this really was, at the time, thought to be the greatest IPA in the world. And I was there. I tasted it. I'll tell the story when I'm on camera then, but I actually got to hang out with Vinny Schwartz, and it was a really nice time. But beer's moved a little bit on in the last 9 years. It's different now, and I think here in Canada, / Alaska, we're brewing some pretty incredible stuff, and I think my favorite IPA from the last few years, Dail, well, it just came back into the market. So we're going to taste some Superflux, some Annex, some 88 Dail, and brand new, this is the Anchorage Brewing Company, their Incognito mode, their double IPA. These folks do something really interesting with sour yeasts and barrel aging and dry hopping to make a truly fascinating style of beer. So yeah, I'm actually not going to qualify them. The greatest IPAs in the world, the only asterisk is it's kind of meaningless. These are the best IPAs in the world right now for us, because IPA is all about freshness. This is going to be really special, and greatest IPA in the world tasting, you know me and IPA, I'm right here. So all that more, May 4th at 6 o'clock. See you then. Hello everyone, welcome to our Wednesday night beer tasting, and welcome to Kyle Does the Best IPAs in the World. Now, we have a ton to talk about here. We are definitely going to use pretty much the full hour, because our first IPA here is Learnin by Annex, and they describe this as they spent their whole time crunching numbers, and they wanted to get the ideal water profile and the ideal dry hop temperature. And you're going to hear these words a lot tonight, to get the terpenes, mercaptans, and thiols exactly right. Now, before we do some book learning, let's pour our first beer, the Annex Learnin New England IPA. Now, you'll notice I'm going to be pouring quite generous ones for Aaron here, because my palate is still a little bit off. It's not where it needs to be. So let's don't pour it out of my glass, idiot. There we go. There you are, Aaron. He is going to be our test palate here. So, what are mercaptans, thiols, terpenes? Well, they're flavor compounds. But historically, they haven't been particularly desirable ones, specifically mercaptan. Now, if you get into my Nez de Van here, which is my kind of wine aromatics test kit, which is this cat that's sitting over here, mercaptan is described either as rotten eggs or chicken shit as your dominant aroma. And I'm not going to take a big whiff here. Oh no, come on, seriously, it actually does require that. More vulgarly, crotte de poule, hen turd. So yes, apparently very vulgar for the late 70s when this was made, was hen turd, not chicken shit. But yes, it does smell like rotten eggs. It smells deeply unpleasant. It smells awful. So why would anyone want mercaptan in their wine, their beer? Well, there's 4 different types of mercaptan, or mercaptans. It's actually a category of aromas, and a whole bunch of them are what makes New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, and to a lesser extent, our friend Riesling here, makes them taste so incredible, so aromatic, so powerful. Now, if you don't get them exactly right, they can be a little stinky, a little fecund. Aaron used the word farty, because he's just a classy guy like that with his mustache. But you really do have these really unique aromas that you can only get with thiols. And we'll talk a whole lot more about some of this when we get to the Anchorage Incognito mode. But yeah, let's dive in here. Our Annex is made with Ella, Enigma, Galaxy, and Vic Secret, which makes it an all-Australian hopped beer here. And all of these are quite new. as part of our book Learnin series, I actually have hop profiles for all of these. So Galaxy is like, current 2009, 2007 for Ella. Doesn't say for Enigma, we'll return to that. Vic Secret is 2013. And yeah, when we're talking about Enigma here in particular, the notes that we're seeing here is raspberries, red currants, white wine notes similar to the New Zealand hop Nelson Sauvin, which is the very first hop, or at least the first commercial hop that was known for those Sauvignon Blanc aromas. And people often refer to it as being crisp and refreshing like a Pinot Gris. Should have had a Pinot Gris reference bottle. Oh well, second time's the charm. Colloidal engineered water. This is basically, now, as I understand water modification, for the most part, it is simply reducing the water down to neutral pH, absolutely no salts, as close to pure water as you can possibly get, and then modifying it, adjusting the pH for whatever you're trying to do, and then adding minerals and salt profile to actually bring up the characteristics of the water so that it's ideal for whatever you're doing. The most common example is Burton salts, which is what a lot of breweries will do when they're making an English-style pale ale or English bitter. But colloidally engineered water, that is a new one on me. Now, please do forgive me, my palate is not what it normally is, so we are leaning on Aaron this afternoon.
We are not.
So what do I get from Book Learnin? I get a really big, stiff malt backbone. I get nice cereal grain. Almost reminds me a little tiny bit of bran flakes or of rye, perhaps. Thank you, Aaron. For a New England IPA, I also noticed that is not the haziest beer in the world either. I think we are going to get much hazier as time goes on here. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Now for hop aromas here, I definitely get that kind of raspberry, red currant thing. We did test Kyle's palate first. I did have an IPA on Monday afternoon. I kind of knew this one was going to be a little challenging, but I also really needed to do this one myself. Eric and Craig will be back next week, or at least Craig will. I asked Craig, I haven't asked Eric yet. So Craig will be back next week at least. I didn't ask Eric yet. But, we'll at least have one of the two next week. As well as Nick Pentelchuk from Blind Man Brewing. Spoiler alert, we're doing a Blind Man tasting.
Yeah.
So, anyway, my palate's not 100%. So, Aaron, you just had a big sip and finished the sample I poured you. What do you get out of this?
The nose was the most noticeable thing for me, and it was definitely that farty right off the bat. It was sulfuric, or now that you mentioned what's the word? $1 million word for it?
Mercaptan or thiol. Yeah.
It's not the first time I've sensed that in a beer, so it can't be it's got to be something that's used kind of across, maybe not across the board, but I mean it's a popular thing to do these days, it seems like.
Yeah.
I only noticed it on the nose, I think is maybe an interesting thing about it, and maybe just because I don't know how to taste it, but the ones coming up, I definitely got a different flavor profile, so I think but I get the grain or the cereal notes that you were mentioning. I think your palate is it's good in that regard.
It's getting there.
I get the brand too.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about the book Learnin side. Pun fully intended. We're going to talk a lot about the science behind these beers because I can't taste for shit. So we're going to get there one way or another. Darn it, we're going to fill 60 minutes and it's going to be fantastic. So, we've introduced our Mercaptan rotten egg thing, but what are thiols? Why are they important? And why are they so hard to nail down? Well, they show up in Rieslings, they show up in some Pinot Gris, they show up in basically every Sauvignon Blanc going. But if you just take Sauvignon Blanc and you actually chemically extract the grapes, there's no thiols. There might be a couple of mercaptans, but there's no thiols, and thiols are really hard to nail down because they have to be fermented in ideal conditions, in ideal pH, in ideal temperature, and if you ferment the grapes just right, these thiols will show up and they will elevate the wine, and they'll bring so much more tropical fruit and fascinating character and just this ethereal quality that you almost can't get any other way. But it's all about the fermentation. The grapes themselves have the precursors necessary for it, but you have to be super, super careful about how you handle them because it's in the process more than it's in the raw ingredients. And that's part of why the Annex book Learnin, this really was my inspiration for this, is so that we could talk about things like water profile, whatever the hell colloidally separated water is. I assume it's just stripped down to nothing and started at neutral so they can modify it. But how you actually get these aromas in a beer, because to one extent or another, all of these beers use that a little tiny bit, and we're going to explore that a little bit here. Grapefruit white wine combo, that's exactly what they're shooting for, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed here, we're going to get that out of all 4 beers, especially the first and the last, but I think this is a very, very worthy opening to this. Now, if anybody wants to know where I pulled all of my research about thiols and how they interact with wine, how they interact with beer, from Sky is just about to post a link in the comments that is the actual very scholarly article about Phantasm and about, you know, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Phantasm in a bit, but about thiols and the role in beer and wine. And it's really funny, they actually use, as one of their reference beers, an establishment beer. They use Irrational Things, which is Establishment's White Can Double IPA series that uses Phantasm powder. And we'll get to that in a sec.
No.
Yeah, you're good. You're good, Sky. It is a very long link, I know. I would have loved to like micro URL that, but unfortunately no. And then craisins. By the way, Chris, best commenter of the night because he's giving me flavor profile things. Remember, that's the best thing I can get from anybody because I really can't taste. I do like this, I just wish I was getting more. Okay, so let's move on a little bit, and we are going to jump in here to the Superflux and Gigantic collaboration called Pretty Much Yeah. Now, this is a very hazy New England pale, done with Galaxy hops exclusively, with a little bit of lactic sugar added. So we're going to get a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of creaminess. There's something about kittens they say about this. No, it's not on the can. It's like sleeping in a pile of kittens or something. They're really emphasizing the softness on this one. Now we're very much sticking in with the Australian theme here on the Pretty Much Yeah. Galaxy is one of the more unique Australian hops are one of the founders of this movement. And it's also, and I want to dig into this here real fast. Aaron, you're going to want to get on that camera here in a sec, because we're going to need that magical, magical camera. Look how many registered trademarks there are on all of these hop descriptions. Galaxy, El Dorado, Mosaic, Enigma. There's almost as many, Citra, there's almost as many registered trademark hops on this list as there are not. And that's a really new thing is, you know, you're not using just Galaxy hops, the plant. You're using Galaxy hops, the manufactured type of product or genetically engineered strain that's just for that. Oddly enough, this is actually the one beer on the table that really comes through for me. I don't know if that's because of the increased sugar or because the Galaxy hops are really screaming in it right now. Oddly enough, everything else we bring in, from Superflux, except the sour, which nobody likes. Well, I like it, but nobody ever buys. The Airstream, the Jellystone, the name of beer, Easy Tiger, they all outsell Pretty Much Yeah, which I don't get because I really love Pretty Much like when we get Color and Shape, it's on the shelves for 3 days. We've had this for like going on 2.5 weeks. And I know that's not very long for a product, but it's Superflux. It tends to sell faster. And you know, I really like Galaxy hops. In fact, just about the only black IPA I've ever enjoyed used a lot of Galaxy hops. Grape Leaf is a fantastic call. I certainly do get some grapey characteristics. The tasting notes for hops here says citrus, peach, passion fruit, especially as late addition. Quite intense but mellows as it matures. First commercial production in 2009 after 9 years of testing. So again, very, very new. Oh, that's fantastic. You definitely get the sugar though. Like, that's much more bittersweet. And I mean, really, with this being so very pale, when we taste old school like West Coast IPAs, they have this bright copper color. They almost look more like an amber ale. And that's coming from the crystal malt that they're adding, which of course is there to balance out the bitterness, to make it more of a bittersweet experience. With the New England pales, they've rather gotten past that by using under attenuation, not finishing the ferment on the beer and having a little bit of sugar. But if you want to fully attenuate your malt, you can also just go around and just add some sugar at the end. The yeast won't ferment the lactose, but we'll still taste it. We'll still taste the sweetness, which is a lovely way of getting around it. Yeah, that's a really, really good description there, Terry. Yes, it's more bitter and more sweet. It's got a little bit of both, and I quite like that about it. Have I ever enjoyed a white IPA? Many. It's black IPAs that are the spawn of Satan. Oh, that's not fair to the spawn of Satan. He probably has some nice kids. Black IPA is irredeemable. As is Aaron, who recommended or suggested earlier that our tasting number 100 be black IPA just to make fun of me. Establishment's new IPA tenderness. Yeah, my palate, as I said, is still screwed, but I actually found that came through very well. A lot of peach, a lot of nectarine, a lot of red berry. It was very, very soft. It was very delicate. It was almost quite Superflux in its execution, I found, which is unusual for establishment. They tend to be a little bit more kind of firm and stiff style IPAs. This was very delicate. It was very nice. Hazy and sweet with just the right bitterness. And yeah, it's tough for me to say, but I would also say that I found the book learning certainly tasted more bitter, but it also didn't have the sugar addition.
I get this delicious gummy candy.
Gummy candies?
Yeah, like probably whatever this citric acid that they use in those, like a gummy worm or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fun like stab of like it's nice. It's really great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
And that one there. Yeah, the second one.
I mean, really, we're talking about like sugar and super tropical, pretty flavor aromas. It should come off kind of candy-like. That's like fun.
Yeah.
White pepper.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good.
Huh. Dandy's Black IPA. All right, I will give it a shot.
Snake Lake has one now, as you probably know.
I do know.
Have you tried it?
I have not yet. Yeah. Well, I mean, it came out just before I got sick, or just maybe slightly after I got sick, and I haven't been able to taste anything, so maybe it would be a black IPA I would enjoy, because I wouldn't be able to taste it. That's very mean to black IPA and Snake Lake, but you know what I mean. I used to drink a lot of Chainbreaker back in the day, Tyler, by Deschutes. I really liked Deschutes Chainbreaker White IPA. I thought that was really nice. I would also somewhat venture, because when we get to Dail up here, they use basically a barely malted barley and then flaked oats in that. Is there really a huge, wild difference between White IPA and New England IPA? I mean, yes, in theory, a old school White IPA would be a West Coast IPA with a bunch of wheat in it. But even then, brewers were kind of experimenting with adding a little bit of dried orange rind, maybe going for a little more of a fruity, soft style of hopping. I don't have any history to back this up, but I would say that just based on my history of drinking IPA and being in the beer community, I would definitely say that white IPA strongly influenced the development of New England IPAs, because really New England IPA is basically white IPA, but you know, the second idea of how to do it was better. Yeah, Chris's tasting notes are saving the tasting.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chris. I will say, though, that's pretty rockin'. That's pretty darned good, yeah.
Good.
Okay, so sticking with our theme of big wine notes, and this had less to talk about with the styles thing, but I want to jump right into the dial up here. This, as I think a lot of people know, was my beer of the year for 2020 when we did our beers of the year 2021. We really didn't do one this year, mostly because, or effectively entirely because, everything I wanted to talk about that I wanted to taste, like Dial Up, like Pump Up the Jam, they just weren't available in, you know, January, February 2022. Everything I wanted to talk about, everything I thought was freaking genius, even the Hoyne Appleton at that point, like, it was available, but how do I talk about it when there's nothing else around it? I mean, I think of the 4 beers I'd have picked, that's the only one I could have gotten, and now I can't even bloody get it. Yeah, everything I really, really love from 2021, it was super, super limited. I'm going to try and think of what the heck my 4th beer would have been in that list, because it was a really strong year for beer. It would definitely be Pump Up the Jam, basically bigger jam rock, Dial Up, Appleton, and Part-Time Model would be in there, but I'm not sure where we would end up. Oh, I definitely get some of this. Texture's been my savior. It's been all about like crunchy onion rings, salads. I bought those like ice cream filled little mochi things, so I get kind of like a sweet sugary and then the gummy outside from the rice paper. I really like that, but it's really been kind of, what's the texture like? Can I get like big flavors out of things? How can I get a big hit of texture and enough flavor that it'll come through? Also, anything in the mustard family. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, mustard, bitter greens, that's generally coming through loud and clear. Delicate hop aroma? Not so much, but we're getting there. Which is funny, because this is probably my favorite IPA of all time, and it smells like boiled cabbage.
Sure does.
You get the cabbage too?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Now that's fascinating. Now, it didn't smell like that when we first opened these and set the tasting order. It was much brighter and prettier. I wonder if that is some of the thiols and terpenes starting to oxidize as this is kind of sat open.
Crazy.
Now, the big calling card of Dial Up and why it's not more commonly available from 88 is the Hallertau Blanc, which is actually not that closely related to Hallertau. It's 2 generations removed. It's actually directly descended from Cascade, released in 2012, and grown in the Hallertau region. So, related to Hallertau, in the same region, but primarily Cascade. And again, flavor profiles here. Just tell me if this sounds familiar. Fruity, wine-like qualities of gooseberry and grass, similar to that of Sauvignon Blanc. When you start seeing these tasting notes show up in Ella, in Enigma, in Hallertau Blanc, to a lesser extent in Galaxy, you start realizing how hard the hop industry has started leaning into this Mercaptan thiol idea as this new place that we can pull flavor from, where we can pull new unique aromas and flavors that otherwise we can't get. Because let's be fair, around 2005, what did an IPA taste like? It tasted like pine, juniper berries, grapefruit, maybe lemon lime if you're lucky, spice, cedar. It was a pretty short list, and now it can smell like almost anything. But again, really, if you want to add fruit to it, it can taste like anything. But really, just sticking to the basic concept of water, malt, hops, and yeast, you can pull all these really cool flavors out just by being very creative with how you grow your hops and what you're doing with them. Getting something savory, fennel,
Totally.
black licorice.
I get soy sauce, like it's salty, umami, like
You're getting an umami note.
totally.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like yeah, almost the way MSG
Oh, that's
gets
fascinating.
into your food. Yeah, like amplifies the
Everything.
flavor. Like it's really interesting. Yeah.
Now, one of the things they say when they're talking about it, it's, again, not on the can. I did print out the tech sheet for the dial up here. I have it more or less to hand. Very light straw color, hazy thick white head. So they're saying passion fruit, white grapes, pineapple, pear, and heavy tropical fruits. Soft, medium body, cream mouthfeel, slight bitterness, it dissipates. Hallertau, yes. Eldorado, another one of those registered trademark hops. Cascade, which makes sense. Generally, hops blend well with their, parent hops. So, Hallertau Blanc being descended from Cascade, they would blend well together. Chit malt, flaked wheats, and flaked oats. And again, flaked wheat and flaked oats, you kind of see that white IPA, New England IPA family lineage here. That's really bright orange. That's a beautiful color. I don't know if it's just the light's catching it different, but that's a lovely color, because as much as I love the Superflux, it doesn't look on its face like something I'd want to drink. It's kind of a sallow color, which is unfortunate. Also, yes, this is Craig and Eric's idea, and I am shamelessly stealing it. But, credit to the people who came up with it. No, borrowed is kinder to me. Now that I'm shamelessly stealing it.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Chris. Apparently, Michelle's not picking up the boiled cabbage thing, but it's her first beer of the night.
Yeah.
But he is, and it's like he's been through the first two with us.
Totally.
And I will admit, when we tasted this, we were going to taste them in this order, because this was actually the order I picked kind of out of a hat. Well, I had a rough idea how these tasted to begin with, but we actually tasted this second, and Aaron and I didn't get any of that, but I immediately picked it up now.
Oh yeah.
Although it's now shifting. Now I'm starting to get like a little bit of mandarin orange, into like navel orange a tiny bit. I will say those kind of white wine notes, at least in the mouth, definitely persist. If you said this was kind of Sauvignon Blanc light, yeah, there's grassiness here. There's definite gooseberry. There's lime. There's grapefruit. That's all very much here. And interestingly, I get less bitterness on this than I did either the Superflux or the Annex. So I think this might be, in terms of bitterness, the lowest, which is odd to me.
It's crazy.
I still love this. The cabbage thing is kind of wearing off for me now. I just love this. This is just exactly the right IPA for me. I do want to actually do I want to do the Anchorage, and I want to have a little sip of this just to reset my palate, and then at the very end I want to revisit the dial up. So we're gonna leave that can where it is, and we'll revisit, because I want to see if that cabbage thing is entirely due to tasting the Superflux right ahead of it, because most of what we're tasting here is all pre-2010 hops. These are all like the bleeding edge of technology. These are the brand newest of the brand new. A huge number of them are Australian. There is a hybrid hop industry in the United States. It is very successful. We're just not tasting any of it tonight. Sort of. And then, yeah, Germany has actually got a really cool thing going on as well. And when I say Australia, I mean Australia and New Zealand, because New Zealand's got some really cool stuff going on with beer as well. Look for more 8-wired as we restock the singles fridge. I really want Cucumber Hippie back for summer. I just don't think it's available yet. Orange ester, no pear cabbage. Now again, I'm tasting everything through a filter, so... Ooh. So we're now at the end of the second beer, going to do something a little bit unusual. We are going to talk very briefly about... Shut up, Aaron. We're going to talk very briefly about the next week's tasting. Yes, we are. And that doesn't change. We're actually going to take a little bit of a break with some visual aids and talk a little bit about hopping here in a moment. So, what is coming up next week? As I teased, it is a blind man tasting. And we're going to do... Okay. What's the issue with blind men brewing for a lot of people? Why is it slowed down in sales? It's kind of because they don't have new seasonal every bloody week the way Annex and Establishment in 88 seem to. Or if they do, they seem to keep it in the brew house. They don't have it available, down here every week, just hitting the market. So I love Long Shadows IPA. I really like the Five of Diamonds Pills. I fully respect the session. The New England Pale, I mean, basically, we don't have all of the new beers. We don't have any of that without Blind Men New England Pale. Blind Men is certainly the most important brewery in Alberta history, period. But they tend to fall into the trap that when you walk up to the beer fridge, yes, Blind Men, you love Blind Men, but 88's got 3 new beers you've never had before. So, okay. Let's turn that on its head a little bit, and let's taste 4 brand new Blind Men beers. So what we have for you this time, this is a little bit of a returning one. It is the May Long Double IPA. Quite like this one. It's apparently slightly different this year. They've been actually changing it up a little tiny bit. So it's a new version of it. 2 from the Fooded series. We have their berry hopped dry berry pills. Dry hops berry pills. Thank you. Dry hop berry pills and the Munich Helles, Munich Dunkel. So these are kind of a dark chocolatey beer as well as like a fruited dry hop beer. So those will be really interesting. They're aged in their kind of big wooden foeders. They're going to be fascinating. And then finally the brand new passion fruit strawberry sour. So all new from Blind Men. Everything new, everything basically untasted before. Let's almost launch them like a new beer, like the first time we had Container, the first time we had Category 12. Let's not talk about the first time we had Great Lakes. The only time we had Great Lakes. But yeah, I mean, I want to kind of pitch them as this brand new brewery that we've never had before, because these are 4 brand new Blind Men beers, and I still think that as much as they aren't down here at least doing something new every week, they're still coming up with some really good ideas. So that's next week's event. Now, I said we were going to do something a little different. That wasn't anything different. But okay, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about hopping beer. Sky, could you bring up the image that is the 3 different types of hops in one image, please?
Yep.
Let me know when it's up. It's up? Okay, awesome. So, with traditional brewing, there are really just 2 types of hops. There were also cones back in the day, but nobody uses them anymore. You have traditional whole cone hops, which have the advantage that they're really fresh, they're really flavorful, they smell amazing, they don't plug up your filter. But whole cone hops don't freeze very well. They tend to fall apart. They get dried out. The oils start breaking down because there's so much surface area. Even when they're packed in like a freeze-dried, like vacuum-sealed foil bag, they still break down and they don't store well. Enter the pellet and the cone. So these are basically hops that are run through a chipper, ground up very, very fine, and then compressed into something that looks very much like cat food, dry cat food or hamster food. Probably using originally of an old hamster food press because it looks identical. This process doesn't destroy any of the oils, doesn't destroy any of the aromatics, but when you actually put them in one of these foil bags, it takes up less space, it's less fussy, you can stack it, you can put it in 100-kilo sacks and it doesn't get, the stuff at the bottom doesn't get destroyed by the weight. They're very reliable, they're shippable, but every time you use pellets, especially post-boil, when you're trying to dry hop things, when you're trying to put it in the whirlpool, you always lose beer because all of that fine hop particulate, it clogs up your filter. It increases the depth of your yeast on the bottom of the tank. It changes the whole dynamic of how much sediment and how much beer that's trapped in that sediment can't be recovered. Using pellets in terms of the cost of the hops, is the cheapest, most economical method by far. But you lose beer because you're introducing fine particulate you can't actually remove from the final product. The third one that's in our image down there, that is plug hops. They're a relatively new product, post 2005. They're basically the best of both worlds. They are whole hop cones pressed into, kind of 1 inch by 2 inch hockey pucks that are effectively as, freeze dry damage resistant as your pellets, but they're whole hops. So when they break down in the hot liquid, they give you whole big leaves rather than that fine particulate, so you can filter them out easily. They don't end up getting stuck in with your tube. They don't end up costing you money because they're soaking up beer that otherwise would be available to be racked off and sold. So in theory, they're kind of the best of both worlds, but it's a fairly new product, but not the newest product. Let's pour ourselves a little Anchorage, and then we'll talk about the last two products here. Now, this beer describes itself as a double India Pale Ale brewed with Incognito, double dry hopped with Phantasm powder, and Mosaic hops. It's actually Incognito Citra, but Incognito isn't a type of hop. It's a hop product. Sky, will we bring up the image of the Incognito? It's the guy who looks like he's pouring honey. Thank you very much. We're not going to talk about the hop oil so much just because it's not used a whole bunch right at the minute because of Incognito and Phantasm. Hop oil really had like a hot minute around 2010, 2012, but it's kind of fallen out of favor a tiny bit. I think this is pretty amazing. I will admit, I didn't have the Incognito mode before I got COVID. I had the base Anchorage IPA, which is what we wanted to use for this tasting, and what one of our viewers actually has at home because we oversold the tasting. Thank you all so much. We actually ended up needing 25 tasting kits. Nice. So one person has the tasting as intended, but then immediately sold out. Also, $9 seems bloody steep. I think we were $6.95 for this, but regardless, that's neither here nor there. So Incognito's up. What Incognito is it's basically all of the hop aroma, all of the hop flavor, all of the oils, all of the crystalline matter, because again, hops and cannabis are quite closely related. So a lot of your active ingredient, in this case, your thiols, your terpenes, your alpha and beta lupulin, it's all in there. What Incognito is they basically remove that vegetative matter. They remove any of those little bits of leaf that make pellets kind of uneconomical to use because they plug up the actual brewing equipment. They remove all that, and they also remove all of the vegetative matter entirely, leaving you with just the good stuff. And it pours like this cloudy goo. And you can buy it as home brewers. It is available for that as well. But it's basically concentrated hop goodness. And from what I did with my book Learnin online, the reason that hop oils have kind of fallen out of favor is while they certainly will contribute some things, this is basically like using the entire hop minus the green part. So it's kind of an ideal process. Don't have a brew date on your can? I also don't have a brew date on my can, although these showed up very recently and sold out very quickly. Now, as we know with McKellar and AleSmith, that doesn't mean a goddamn thing, but based on how this tastes, I would guess this is reasonably fresh. Now, the last product, and why we kind of have been talking all about Sauvignon Blanc, all about thiols, all about Mercaptan, it's a product called Phantasm, and I teased it earlier, talking about the establishment irrational things. Sky, would you bring up that third image for me, please?
There it is.
Got it?
Got it.
Awesome. So this is Phantasm. It's a powder, and it's made from dried, powdered New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc skins, more or less. Now again, like I said earlier, the skins themselves don't contain thiols, but after they're fermented at exactly the right temperature, the right pH, the perfect conditions, they will give you these super lifted, super pretty New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc characteristics, this berry note, particularly blueberry, blackberry. It'll give you lime and gooseberry and grapefruit. It will give you this massive flavor hit. Now, we're using traditional mosaic hops, of course, but this is being made primarily with two very, very new, very, very modern hopping and flavor addition techniques. And that's why we've kind of built up to this. All of these IPAs that we super respect. I think everybody watching respects Annex. Everybody watching respects Superflux. Everybody respects 88. We're now learning about Anchorage. This is kind of the future in a glass. This is the way IPAs at this moment in time in 2022, we might realize like brute IPAs in a year that it was all just this super tiny fad that didn't stick around. But right now, this is the future of IPA as people see it, and it's absolutely fascinating. Yeah, basically juiced hop flower. That's a way of thinking it.
Crazy. I just feel like this in the dial-up could be switched.
Do you think this in the dial-up could flip?
Almost, you know, like I understand the alcohol content.
8.4, yeah, but it doesn't taste like 8.4.
But it doesn't hit you like that.
Like
know?
this, we have.
The dial-up is even.
This is ludicrous levels of dangerous.
Yeah.
This at 8.4,
Yeah.
I could have 3 cans of this and be like, oh yeah, I feel fine. And then you got to stand up and you really don't feel fine.
Not so fine.
I really love the carbonation on this. I actually called Anchorage a couple of hours ago and talked to the head brewer, Gabe Fletcher, who was the person who answered the phone. The head brewer is like the guy who answers the phone, which I found really exciting. He had no idea who I was, and I like grilled him for all these questions out of the blue, no idea who I was, about his double IPA. And yeah, I was like, well, how do you get this carbonation? Do you like age it for a time first? Like, no, it's just an IPA, man. Like we use our really proprietary yeast blend. Like, can I talk about that? He's like, yeah. No, you can't. I'm not going to tell you. And I said, well, talk to me about like the hopping. He's like, well, you know what Phantasm is? Yes. And you know what Incognito is? Yes. Well, it's us playing around with like new types of hopping and new types of like flavor addition. And then he like went on to talk about the artist Massive Face who does all the cans for them for about the next 5 minutes. It was a fantastic conversation. But he was, have you ever seen a TV interview with like, the Flames coach, Daryl Sutter, where everything's like a one-word answer? It was kind of like that. Largely because I, completely surprised him out of nowhere with a phone call he wasn't expecting and then grilled him about his double IPA.
Hey man, I've been Viking.
But yeah, it was really good. Yeah, this really does not come through as 8.4. I don't get the McDonald's orange drink. Aaron, you're my tasting palate of the day. McDonald's orange drink? A little bit?
Not orange drink though. It's more like orange juice way at the back, like morning Minute
Fresh or like Minute Maid?
Yeah. Like is it Minute Maid like that makes the decent one in the grocer's cooler? Like
Well, yeah, as good as anything.
Yeah,
they had Elvis Stoico in their
back
ads.
here. It's like an
Yeah.
orange juice back there. It's not quite like orange drink, but
Kind of a sherbet quality. I also find their carbonation so fun. Like their I don't want to call it champagne carbonation. Their carb though is very delicate, very creamy. It's very different than all the others, which is why I thought maybe they like aged it in concrete tanks or did something like that. But no, it's just that's the way they carb, and he's very quiet about how they do that.
well, he doesn't know you from the hole in the wall either,
No, he had no idea who I was, and I was just being really excited about his beer, and he was like, oh god, man, it's the end of the day. Like, come on. I don't want to talk to you.
It's 2 p.m. The sun's going down.
Yes. Man, I just crushed 2 Incognitos with lunch. I have no idea if you did or not, but yeah, like, no, I mean, if I worked there, I would. This is great. But no, he was really, really nice, very polite. Really did talk a little bit about how they did this. You have to use the Phantasm in the ferment only. It's a fermentation product. If you try boiling it, it doesn't work. If you try adding it in the whirlpool when it's hot, it almost doesn't work. It needs to be added exactly the right temperature at exactly the right moment, or the thiol thing doesn't come through properly. You get that kind of chicken shit sort of aroma. He doesn't want that, obviously. He's going for something that's got these giant aromas. And it's the same thing with the Incognitos, you know. How can we change hops so they aren't bitter, pine, grapefruit, citrus? How can we make them more interesting? And I really like how different all of these were. I like how traditional this was in its malt aspect, and yet how aggressive it was with trying to get the thiols to do their thing. This was just a really fun IPA, and if we're going to do our best of the best IPA table, we kind of have to have a Superflux on the table. And also, it was the slowest selling Superflux, so I wanted a chance to show it off, to be like, hey everyone who likes Superflux, this doesn't suck, buy it, it's great. And then these two, I wanted to talk about all of this together, so this was exactly how I wanted to show these off. Ooh, is it the burn of the alcohol or the hops? I would guess the hops because I'm not picking up the alcohol. But again, I'm also very compromised, so... Almost all the ingredients need to be imported. I mean, not imported to the US because I believe all the Incognito hops are made in the US. It is very much a product of one company only that invented the process.
Monsanto.
No, it's not Monsanto. Bloody well, better not be. No, I think it's one of the Yakima hop growers that invented it. But I believe it's all Washington State stuff. But I mean, really, when we're talking about any of these hops, when we're talking about hops in general, I mean, Canada does have some hop growing operations in BC, but not much, because you need very, very particular climate conditions for good hops, and it's basically the same climate conditions you need for wine, at least in Canada. The further south you move, you really just need really, really hot heat sink areas, which for Canada means we need it for wine. The same land used for wine will pay more than the same land used for hops, plus hops are finicky, they require a ton of infrastructure, so does grapes, but they're just generally less reliably profitable than grapes. So the Okanagan could be Canada's greatest answer to the hop industry, but it's way more profitable to grow wine there. But yeah, I mean, hops are grown Germany, Britain, the US, Australia, New Zealand, Japan has Sorachi Ace. It's kind of everywhere but here to a certain point, although we do grow some hops, especially in the southern part of the Okanagan near Soyuz.
And our decorative hop game is on point.
I really like this. Even with my palate a little muted, I'm right on board with this. Is the background book intentional irony? This isn't actually a book. I'll actually show this off. This is actually where I got my Mercaptan and my little vial. So this is what's called Le Nez du Vin. I'm being very careful not to knock over these glasses. So Le Nez du Vin is an educational tool for wine tasting. It includes all of these little tiny tasting cards, and there's a whole bunch in the back behind these. And then a descriptor book, and then a guide for all of the different flavors: apricot, acacia, oak, lemon, apple, plum, all of the different things you might taste in a wine. And also the box on its own, even though the bottles are sealed, although many are kind of on their way out because this is circa 1978. There are all these aroma compounds that you would find in a wine. Sometimes when I'm trying to chase something down, I'll drag this out and actually, run through this to see what's actually going on. Yeah, it's a fascinating educational kit. I can smell that, but I can't smell a whole lot else. But yeah, that's what this is for. Is it's a wine nosing. You certainly don't want to taste these. Wine nosing kit to help you pick out and differentiate different flavors that you find in wine. So that's what's in the background. They do still sell these, probably not still the second edition, but they do still sell these to this day. They are still out there. I don't know where you actually would buy one of these days.
Chapters.
Probably not at Chapters. Oh, I shouldn't say it. Probably Chapters online. Bloody hell, they sell almost anything there. It is. It's a sniff cyclopedia. God.
Who said that?
Who do you bloody think? It was Eric. Yep. Thank you. It was Eric.
Yeah.
Sky called it.
It's all the agency he didn't get. He doesn't know he's on air this week.
Yes, I am going to do return to dial-up. Thank you. I was just getting to that.
Return to dial-up.
So we are going to taste... Now, we are not going to taste the Superflux. We're going to go from a little tiny bit of book learning just to refresh the palate and then straight into dial-up. Because that's how I had it the first time when I didn't get kind of the boiled vegetable thing.
Yep.
I'm not familiar that Vauxhall actually tried to do the hop farming thing. The thing that I would immediately suggest is hop rhizomes are super winter kill susceptible. Like if we had 2 solid weeks at -32, -33, it just killed everything. That's also why we really don't have wine grape growing in Alberta, is they're the same story. If it gets too cold for too long, everything dies. So that would be my guess, knowing nothing about it. And yeah, for whatever reason, hops have to be grown outside, and it's largely because they have to climb up about 30, 40 feet to be commercially harvestable. You'll see these giant trellises, like in the middle of the field, kind of going their whole way down. They have to be grown on these like racks.
Why did they have to go so high?
I don't know why they have to go so high necessarily. Yeah. Well, I assume it's because the vine wants to grow, and to commercially harvest it, you have to get a certain number of tons per hectare. And if you go up, you can have more square footage of vine, more hop cones, t.d. Yeah, it's not about the height, it's just about commercial. I mean, if you just wanted to grow them for yourself, you could probably grow them on a barbed wire fence at waist height. But, if you want to make money at it, you have to have a taller operation. And also the rhizomes take several years to actually get established and start fruiting. So if you get a winter kill anywhere in there, the rhizomes might never produce anything. And hop rhizomes are A, hard to get, and B, not cheap. They are very expensive, what they are. I don't know if book learning got better or our palates just kind of acclimatized better.
Just behind and trying to catch up, so we're like overcompensating with like lots of details, and it actually turns out it's great.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Now that I know Hop to It Farms exists, yeah. Ooh. Okay, so that genuinely is pretty darned good.
Oh yeah.
I'll also say some of what you said was the initial fartiness or mercaptan aromas has blown off completely.
Me too. Yeah, same.
It's really cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's jump straight into dial-up.
Yeah, this bastard. This one.
Okay, yeah, it's basically gone. It's so much cleaner now. It was just tasting.
Melon.
Yeah, now the melon's back. Now everything's back. Yeah, it was just tasting the Superflux in between.
Crazy.
That just drove that cabbage straight in our faces.
That rules.
Wow. Sky, would you do me a solid? Would you see if they still sell Le Nez du Vin and post a link to the sale link in the comments?
For sure.
What's coming up next? Scotch tasting. Yes.
Yes.
And a return to in-store tastings. Almost certainly with an online component, so it'll be kind of filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Whoa.
We actually have the folks from Waterford on tap to join us. We've actually got enough different Waterfords in the market right now. We can do one. I'm in negotiation with them right now. It kind of got derailed when I, wasn't answering my email for 2 weeks because I got COVID. But we have something going with these folks, and it's going to be a hybrid. Like normally, when we did a whiskey tasting, it'd be me and the Alberta sales rep, and they'd be like reading off notes from the head distiller. No. Lessons learned from freaking COVID. We are going to have the head distiller on camera from Ireland answering your questions in real time, both in person and online, making Aaron's life very interesting. But we're going to have that going on where people can actually talk to the head distiller in real time at a live tasting here. Just, they're going to show up as a big giant head on a TV. And that's going to be so much fun. We don't have a date nailed down. We were like in the final stages of the negotiation right before I got sick. So we punted it down the road. It was actually going to be in early June. We've kind of kicked it to July now because I got sick. But yeah, that's coming up. We're going to be doing more in-store tastings. We still want to keep the momentum we built doing the online tastings. We want to keep that rolling into, doing more in-store stuff, getting winemakers, getting people in the store, finding fun ways to keep this cool thing rolling because I don't want it to stop. As much as I've loved talking to a camera for the last 2 and change years, it does eventually have to come to an end. And I want to take out of it everything positive I learned from it, how to talk to people, how to be presentable, how to do my research and prepare properly, how to find, nice little segs when I run out of things to talk about and I'm panicking in the back of my mind in front of a camera with lots of people watching. But also bringing in like head winemakers and head distillers and brewmasters because they want to talk to the public and they don't have enough opportunities because for them it's just, hey, an hour of my time to talk to 25 people who paid to come to an event featuring my products and I don't have to book a hotel or a meal out of town or take my whole evening. I can just sit in my living room on my computer and do this and talk about my passion that built this company. Sign me the hell up. And that's true everywhere. We had winemakers from Chile, from Australia, from Canada. We had brewmasters from all over the place join us. And the big thing I learned is these people seem like, these unapproachable celebrity winemakers, brewmakers, whatever, from afar. But in reality, when you just sit down and talk with them, we have these ridiculous, silly, wonderful conversations because they're just people who want to talk about cool stuff. And if they happen to make that cool stuff, so much the better. So yeah, we are going to be returning in time to in-person events, but with a twist. And they're going to be much better than they were before. So that is coming up. Now I, out of deference to the people who made these and my compromised palate, I'm not going to rank these. Of them, I think I can taste the most out of the Superflux. And that's as far as I'm going to go. Aaron, you could taste all of these. What are your rankings? What did you love?
1, 2, 4, 3.
1, 2, 4, 3. The Dial-Up, my favorite IPA.
Oh, yeah. Even after the time it had to settle, that savory bit, like I couldn't get past it as a delicious note.
Okay. Yep. Chad is 2341. Didn't like the Annex. Eric's Legacy, 4 glasses and Buddha rankings. I don't mind rankings as long as we don't have somebody who actually made the beer and is emotionally attached to it, in attendance, because that's just rude. I do note that okay, this is going to be really nitpicky. Book Learning calls itself a New England IPA. And when you look at that, one of these things is very much not like the others. One of these things is not hazy. Now, don't get me wrong. I like me a classic West Coast IPA, but, you guys know what, New England hazy is, right? That is not very hazy, but that's okay. That is such a minor nitpick. We'll ignore it. Crazy, it's hard to rank. Heather has them 4, 2, 3, 1. Okay. Well, a lot of people not digging the Annex. Fair enough. And again, let me be clear. This is going to be a hybrid model. We will have the live tasting. But if I'm bringing in a winemaker from Australia or from California or wherever, and I have to have Aaron here, he's still able, him and Sky, to film the tasting and do an online component. So just because you're in rural or from out of town or wherever, we're still going to have the online component. You can still buy the kit to do at home. We're not just moving to in-store tastings and, hey, all these people have, joined us the last 2 and change years, double birds and thank you and good luck. We're not doing that. We're going to keep that hybrid model where if you want to do it at home, you can. If you want to come out and join us in person, you can. It's going to be both.
Geez, thanks. I was wondering.
You're not fired, Eric. Line from The Simpsons. So that's it after 20 years. Goodbye and good luck. I don't remember saying good luck. Yeah. No, it's not quite that. You're not fired from the cracker factory. But yes, very exactly, Craig. Studio audience.
Laugh track.
And yeah, what if we just don't like people in general? Well, I know that's not true about you, Eric, but if you want to stay at home and do it virtually, we are going to make sure that there's always that option, and it's exactly as engaging and interesting as being in person, as much as I can possibly make that happen.
Make it even
So, yeah, that's just it. We're not abandoning the online model. We're not entirely just saying, nope, thanks for everything, shut off the lights, we all go home, Aaron just goes to cry in his closet. We're not doing that. We're moving to a hybrid model, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But it has hit 7 bells. We talked about a lot of cool stuff. I did not write down the name of the website I got all of these hop profiles from, but I'm going to very quickly Google it for everybody really fast, because I stole so much from them, and I would feel I'd feel really bad if I didn't at least credit them for like all of the information I used. Oh, it's not that one. It's Hopslist. Yeah. It's hopslist.com is where I shamelessly copy pasted all of this information from. They're absolutely fantastic. They've got they're really ad heavy, oddly enough. Like ads in the middle of the hop profile paragraphs, which is fine. But yeah, this is where I pulled like full profiles of basically every hop strain known to man. The only thing they didn't have is a separate section for Phantasm. Fair enough, it's not a hop. And the Incognitos. They didn't have anything separated out for Citra Incognito versus Citra. Interestingly enough, they did have US and New Zealand versions of Cascade separated, which I thought was very good.
Fun.
Just check the comments one last time. Yeah, I think. Oh, and John got the oddball. Well, I will admit, the regular Anchorage IPA, when I had it before I got sick, it was a little better than the Incognito mode to my palate today. But I will say, this brewery, you're going to be seeing a lot more of them around. Because now that we have to completely redo the singles fridge, you're going to see some. You're going to see some Anchorage. You're going to see a lot of Anchorage.
So that'll be 99. Is that correct?
What's that?
Singles fridge, like specialty tasting?
Well, yeah, that's going to be 99.
99. 100?
Well, what's next week? Next week's 98?
98.
Then the week after is the 99.
And then 100.
We're not doing black IPAs.
Is
We will find something really cool to do.
we have wonderful things in mind.
Well, we've talked about what we want to do. I have an idea.
Tune in next week.
Tune in time. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're gonna make Sky walk around with a Steadicam. It's gonna be great. We're gonna do a brewery tour. Sky's gonna have to walk around with a Steadicam. He's gonna hate his life. He's gonna have cables trailing behind him. Yeah. It's gonna be great. Anyway, thanks everybody. This was so much fun. Happy to be back. Craig and Eric next week, and then I don't have anything else booked on a Wednesday. Touch wood. Kind of going into the summer. Beer tasting number 100 coming up. Gonna be fun. We'll see how it goes. Until then. I've been Kyle with Andrew Hilton Wine & Spirits. This has been Sky and Aaron. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.